I witnessed a Karen call the police over nothing and stayed until the end. I was filming the woman scream at the barista when the first cop arrived, and I remember thinking this would get maybe 50,000 views. Tops. Viral Karen content. Easy engagement. The woman was mid-50s, expensive highlights, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head despite being indoors. She was demanding to speak to a manager about her latte being deliberately sabotaged because it had almond milk instead of oat milk. Standard stuff. The barista, a kid who couldn't have been more than 19, looked ready to cry. I had my phone out, recording from a corner table, already composing the caption in my head. Then the cop walked in, and the woman's face did something I'd never seen before. Her expression didn't just change, it fractured. For maybe half a second, pure terror flashed across her features before the mask of righteous indignation slammed back down. That's when I knew I wasn't leaving. The incident started 20 minutes earlier. I'd been working remotely from the Westbridge Coffee Company on 4th Street, my usual Friday afternoon spot. Decent Wi-Fi, good cold brew, enough background noise to keep me focused. I'd been a content creator for 3 years, mostly commentary and reaction videos. Nothing massive, but enough to pay rent. 52,000 subscribers. I had an eye for moments that would pop on social media. The woman had stormed in around 3:15, already furious about something. She wore a cream-colored blazer that probably cost more than my rent, carried a Burberry bag, and moved like someone accustomed to being obeyed. She'd ordered her drink with the kind of precise aggression that made the barista's hands shake while writing on the cup. I'd been half watching, professional instinct. People like her either deflated after getting their way or escalated into content gold. She'd grabbed her drink, taken one sip, and then everything exploded. "This is almond milk," she'd announced, her voice cutting through the ambient coffeehouse chatter like a blade. Every conversation stopped. "I specifically ordered oat milk. Specifically." The barista, whose name tag read Devon, apologized immediately, offered to remake it. The woman slammed the cup down so hard that foam splattered across the counter. "You did this on purpose. I can taste the difference. I have a severe allergy. This could have killed me." That's when I started recording. The allergic reaction claim was classic Karen escalation, but Devon's response confused me. Instead of apologizing more or getting defensive, he went very still. "Ma'am, I wrote oat on your cup. You watched me write it, and I made your drink myself. It's oat milk." He pointed to the cup. There, in black marker, was clearly written OAT. The woman's face flushed crimson. "You're calling me a liar? I want your manager. I'm calling the police. This is assault. You tried to poison me." That's when she'd actually dialed 911, in a coffee shop, over a drink she claimed was wrong despite all evidence suggesting otherwise. I kept recording, zooming in on the cup with OAT clearly visible, then panning to capture her face as she spoke to the dispatcher. "Yes, I need police at Westbridge Coffee immediately. I've been assaulted. The employee gave me a drink containing an allergen after I specifically told him about my allergy. This is criminal negligence." The manager, a woman in her 30s named Lee, had emerged from the back. She'd tried to de-escalate, offered a full refund, a gift card, profuse apologies. The woman wasn't having it. "I'm not leaving until police arrive and file a report. This employee needs to be arrested." That seemed insane to me, genuinely unhinged. But I'd learned that the truly viral content came from staying through the entire arc. Most people filmed the beginning, maybe captured the first confrontation, then left. I always stayed. That's what separated my content from the thousands of other Karen videos flooding social media. I documented the full story. Officer Dennison arrived 12 minutes after the call. I timed it. He was maybe 40, built like he spent his off-duty time at the gym, with the particular kind of weathered patience that comes from responding to thousands of bullshit calls. His partner, Officer Grace Liu, followed seconds later. She was younger, sharper-eyed, and I noticed she immediately scanned the entire space before approaching the counter. Professional threat assessment. The woman launched into her complaint before Dennison even finished walking through the door. "Officer, thank God. This employee gave me a drink with almond milk despite knowing I have a severe, life-threatening allergy to almonds. When I confronted him, he became hostile and refused to take responsibility. I need to file assault charges." Dennison glanced at the cup, at Devon, at the growing crowd of customers with their phones out. I wasn't the only one recording now. "Ma'am, what's your name?" he asked, pulling out a notepad. The woman hesitated, just for a heartbeat, but I caught it on camera. "Amanda Novak," she said. Dennison wrote it down. "And you're saying this drink contains almond milk, which you're allergic to?" Amanda nodded vigorously. "Severely allergic. Anaphylactic. I could have died." Dennison looked at Devon. "What kind of milk did you use?" Devon pointed at the cup again. "Oat milk, sir, just like she ordered. I made it myself. The oat milk container is right there." He gestured to the clearly labeled oat milk carton on the back counter. Liu spoke for the first time. "Have you consumed any of the drink, ma'am?" Amanda's eyes darted to her. I took one sip before I realized. I can taste the difference. Liu's expression didn't change. "Are you experiencing any allergic reaction symptoms right now? Throat swelling, difficulty breathing, hives?" A pause. Amanda touched her throat. I feel some tightness. It's starting. I zoomed in on her face. No visible swelling. No hives. Her breathing looked completely normal. Dennison exchanged a glance with Liu. Something wordless passed between them. Ma'am, if you're experiencing anaphylaxis, we need to call an ambulance immediately. Amanda backpedaled. It's mild right now, the beginning stages, but that doesn't change the fact that this employee gave me the wrong drink and put my life at risk. Dennison looked tired. The cup says oat milk. The employee says he used oat milk. The oat milk container is visible. Do you have any proof that almond milk was used? Amanda's voice rose. I can taste it. I know my own allergy. Are you calling me a liar? That particular phrase. I'd heard it in a dozen Karen videos, the indignant loop they entered when reality stopped cooperating with their narrative. Dennison sighed. Ma'am, I'm not calling you anything, but without evidence of wrongdoing, there's no crime here. This appears to be a customer service dispute, not a police matter. Amanda's face transformed. The mask of victimhood cracked into something uglier. So you're not going to do anything? I called for help and you're just going to side with him? She jabbed a finger at Devon, who flinched. I want your badge numbers. Both of you. I'm filing a complaint. You're refusing to protect me. Liu stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but had an edge I recognized from watching hundreds of hours of police footage. Authority, without aggression. Ma'am, you're welcome to file a complaint. But right now, we need you to either accept the manager's offer to remake your drink or leave the premises. You can't remain here indefinitely. Amanda crossed her arms. I'm not leaving until I get justice, until someone takes responsibility. The standoff might have continued indefinitely, spiraling into the exact viral content I'd hoped for, except Devon said something that changed everything. Wait. He was staring at Amanda with a strange expression. Confused recognition. I know you. You were here last week. You did the same thing. The room went silent. Amanda's face drained of color. I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never been here before. Devon looked at Lee. Remember? Last Wednesday? She said her drink had dairy in it even though she'd ordered almond milk. Said she was lactose intolerant. Made a huge scene. You gave her a refund and a $50 gift card. Lee's eyes widened. She stared at Amanda. Oh my God, you're right. Same woman. Different allergy. Amanda laughed, but it sounded wrong. Brittle. You're mistaken. I just have one of those faces. Lots of people. Devon interrupted her. You were wearing the same sunglasses. Same Burberry bag. You said your name was... He trailed off, forehead crinkling. It wasn't Amanda. It was something else. Victoria? Veronica? Now Dennison's demeanor shifted. His posture changed. He was no longer a bored civil servant responding to a nuisance call. Ma'am, is that true? Have you been here before? Amanda shook her head violently. No, they're confused. This is harassment now. You need to remove me from this situation. But Liu was already moving toward the counter, speaking quietly with Lee. I adjusted my position to keep everything in frame. Dennison focused on Amanda. Can I see some identification, please? It was phrased as a request, but his tone made it clear it wasn't optional. Amanda's hands trembled as she reached into her bag. This is ridiculous. I'm the victim here, and you're treating me like a criminal. She produced a driver's license and handed it to Dennison. He studied it for a long moment. Too long. Then he looked up at her face. Back down at the license. This says your name is Victoria Cross. Amanda blinked rapidly. What? No. I said Amanda. Amanda Cross. You must have misheard me. Dennison's expression hardened. I wrote down Amanda Novak. That's what you told me. He showed her his notepad. She laughed again, that same fractured sound. I misspoke. It's been a stressful day. My name is Victoria Cross. Obviously. That's my license. Liu returned from her conversation with Lee. She leaned close to Dennison and whispered something I couldn't hear. His eyebrows rose. He looked at Victoria. Ma'am, the manager says you gave a different name last week too, and paid with a credit card that had another name on it. Victoria's face cycled through expressions too fast to track. Panic, rage, calculation. I don't know what she's talking about. This is slander. Dennison held up a hand. I'm going to need you to step outside with me for a moment. Victoria didn't move. Am I under arrest? The question hung in the air. Dennison's response was careful. No, but I need to verify some information. You can either cooperate voluntarily, or I can detain you for further investigation. The threat was implicit. Victoria grabbed her bag. Fine, but I'm calling my lawyer. This is harassment. She followed Dennison outside. Liu remained inside, now speaking with Lee at length. I kept recording, but my mind was racing. This had stopped being a Karen video the moment Devon recognized her. This was something else, something bigger. I should have left, should have been satisfied with the footage I had. But that fractured expression when the cop first arrived, that moment of terror before the mask came down, I needed to know what caused that. I settled back into my chair and waited. Outside, through the large front windows, I could see Dennison talking with Victoria next to his patrol car. She was gesturing emphatically. He was speaking into his radio. Whatever he was hearing was making him tense. His hand kept drifting to his belt, not to his weapon, but to his radio, like he was expecting backup. Liu finished with Lee and approached Devon. Did she really use a different name last week? Devon nodded. I remember because it was weird. She made this huge scene about being lactose intolerant, but when the manager processed her refund, the credit card said Christine something. The manager mentioned it after she left. We joked about whether she was a scammer running some kind of refund fraud scheme. Liu pulled out her own notepad. Do you remember what day that was? Exact date? Devon checked his phone. Last Wednesday, the 8th, around 4 in the afternoon. Liu wrote it down. Then she looked at me. I froze. Sir, I noticed you've been recording this entire interaction. Is that correct? I lowered my phone. Yes, officer. It's legal. Public space, no expectation of privacy. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Liu nodded. I'm not questioning the legality. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share that footage with us. That surprised me. Why? She glanced outside at Victoria and Dennison. When she looked back, her expression was serious. Because we think this woman has been doing this at multiple locations across the city. If your video shows her using a different name or displaying a pattern of fraudulent behavior, it could be evidence. Evidence. The word sent a jolt through me. This wasn't just viral content anymore. This was an actual investigation. What kind of fraud are we talking about? Liu measured her response. I can't discuss an ongoing investigation, but if you're willing to provide your footage, it could be helpful. We'd need your contact information as well. I thought about it for maybe 3 seconds. Yeah, absolutely. Want me to airdrop it to you or... She pulled out a card. Email it to this address. Include today's date and time, this location, and a brief description of what's shown in the video. We'll follow up if we need a formal statement. I took the card. Detective Rebecca Marsh, Financial Crimes Unit. My stomach flipped. Financial crimes. This wasn't about coffee at all. Liu saw my expression. Don't jump to conclusions. Just send the video. She returned outside. Through the window, I watched her speak with Dennison. He was still on his radio, now looking increasingly agitated. Victoria was pacing. Her earlier aggressive confidence had evaporated. She looked cornered. A second patrol car pulled up. 2 more officers emerged. One was older, maybe 50, with sergeant stripes on his uniform. The other was younger, stockier. They conferred with Dennison and Liu, while Victoria stood apart, arms wrapped around herself. The sergeant approached Victoria. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could read body language. She was shaking her head, denying something. The sergeant's posture was rigid, official. Then he said something that made Victoria's knees buckle. She caught herself on the patrol car. The sergeant gestured to one of the other officers, who moved to Victoria's side, not touching her, not restraining her, but definitely preventing her from leaving. Inside the coffee shop, the other customers were starting to disperse. The show was apparently over, but I stayed. Lee approached my table. Are you okay? I know that got intense. I looked up at her. What did she pay with last week? You said a credit card with a different name? Lee bit her lip. I shouldn't talk about customer payment information. I gestured to the scene outside. I think we're past customer privacy concerns. She sighed. Christine Reeves. That was the name on the card. And when I asked about it, she said it was her business card, for her consulting company. But the way she said it? Lee trailed off. It felt rehearsed, like she'd explained it before. I pulled out my laptop and opened a new browser window, typed in Christine Reeves and the city name. The first result was a news article from 6 months ago. Local woman reports identity theft, thousands in fraudulent charges. I clicked it. The photo showed a woman in her early 30s, blonde, professional headshot. Not Victoria. The article detailed how Christine Reeves discovered someone had stolen her identity and racked up over $30,000 in charges across multiple credit cards. I showed Lee. Her hand went to her mouth. Oh, shit. I kept reading. The article mentioned that police were investigating but had no leads. The fraud had been sophisticated, involving multiple fake IDs and a complex network of purchases. I searched Victoria Cross identity theft and got nothing relevant. Tried Amanda Novak and found another news article, this one from 3 months ago. Amanda Novak, a real estate agent from the northern suburbs, had reported her credit cards stolen. Fraudulent charges at restaurants, coffee shops, and boutique stores. No arrests. I felt cold. This wasn't just a Karen making scenes for refunds. This was someone actively using stolen identities, testing credit cards, and apparently picking fights in public spaces to cover the transactions or create confusion if anyone questioned the card names not matching her ID. Outside, Victoria was now in handcuffs. The sergeant was reading something from a card. Miranda rights. I grabbed my phone and started recording again. This was the resolution, the exposure, but it didn't feel satisfying. It felt horrifying. Dennison entered the coffee shop and approached Lee. Ma'am, we're going to need to see your security camera footage from today and from last week. We're also going to need copies of any receipts or transaction records for both incidents. Lee nodded quickly. Of course. Whatever you need. Dennison looked at me. Officer Liu said you have video? I held up my phone. Already sent it to Detective Marsh's email. He nodded approval. We may need you to come in for a formal statement. I gave him my contact information. As he was writing it down, Liu entered with an older woman I didn't recognize. She was maybe 60, gray-haired, wearing business casual. Liu introduced her. This is Agent Carolyn Fletcher from the Financial Crimes Task Force. She's been tracking this case for 8 months. 8 months. My brain struggled to process that. Fletcher's voice was clipped and professional. The woman in custody is currently using the name Victoria Cross, but that's also a stolen identity. We believe her real name is Diana Pelletier. She's wanted in connection with a sophisticated identity theft ring operating across 3 states. Fletcher looked at me. Your video is the first clear footage we have of her actively using a stolen identity while making a scene to distract from the credit card fraud. Most victims don't realize their cards have been used until they get their statements. By then, she's gone. I found my voice. She was using Christine Reeves's card last week. I found the news article about her identity being stolen. Fletcher's expression sharpened. You have documentation of that? I turned my laptop around. She studied the screen, then pulled out her phone and took a photo of my findings. This confirms the connection. Excellent work. Excellent work. I'd just been recording for content. Now I was apparently part of a multi-state investigation. The absurdity of it hit me. I started laughing. Couldn't stop. Everyone stared. Sorry, I managed. Sorry, it's just, I thought this was going to be a viral Karen video, easy content, and instead I stumbled into actual police work. Fletcher's expression softened slightly. Sometimes that's how these things break. Someone pays attention when everyone else looks away. The next 3 hours were a blur. Fletcher took my statement formally. Devin and Lee gave theirs. More officers arrived. The coffee shop became a crime scene, though they let Lee keep operating with most of the space cordoned off. I sent every second of footage I'd captured to Fletcher's secure email. She asked me to preserve the raw files. Don't edit them. Don't post them anywhere. They're evidence now. The content creator in me died a little, but I agreed. This was bigger than views. Fletcher explained what they knew. Diana Pelletier, real age 47, had been running identity theft schemes for over a decade. She'd been arrested twice before in other states, but had always managed to plea down or disappear before trial. She was smart, methodical. She'd steal identities, create fake IDs, and use the credit cards in low-dollar transactions at places like coffee shops, casual restaurants, and boutique stores, places where staff were busy and unlikely to scrutinize every card. She'd cause scenes deliberately, make staff and other customers focus on her behavior rather than the transaction details. She's a narcissist, Fletcher said. Gets off on the chaos, the control, but that's also her weakness. She can't help herself. The scenes get bigger each time, more dramatic. Eventually, someone remembers her. Devin had been that someone. I asked Fletcher why Victoria, or Diana, whatever her real name was, had looked so terrified when Dennison first arrived. Fletcher smiled grimly. She probably recognized him. Officer Dennison was part of the response team 3 months ago when we nearly caught her at a restaurant in the downtown district. She saw him and realized she'd picked the wrong location at the wrong time. The irony was staggering. She'd called the police on herself. Fletcher pulled out a folder and showed me photos. Different women, all similar to Diana. Professional clothing, expensive accessories, confident postures. These are all her. Different hair colors, different styles. She changes her appearance slightly for each identity, uses the victim's actual ID photos as reference, and alters her look to match close enough to pass a casual inspection. I studied the photos. In one, she had darker hair and glasses. In another, she'd added a streak of purple. Each version looked distinct enough that you might not immediately recognize them as the same person. How much has she stolen? Fletcher's expression darkened. We've tracked at least $200,000 across 43 known victims. The real number is probably higher. Many victims don't report smaller fraudulent charges. They just eat the loss and move on. $200,000. 43 people. I thought about Christine Reeves and Amanda Novak, their lives disrupted by someone else wearing their identity like a costume. What happens now? Fletcher closed the folder. She'll be processed, arraigned, and held without bail given her flight risk. We'll build the case using evidence we've gathered, including your footage. With multiple jurisdictions involved and the interstate angle, she's looking at federal charges. Wire fraud, identity theft, credit card fraud. She'll spend years in prison. That should have felt like victory. Justice served. But I just felt tired. Fletcher must have seen it on my face. I know this isn't what you expected when you started recording today, but you did something important. You stayed. You paid attention. You documented everything clearly. That matters more than you know. She handed me her card. If you remember anything else, any detail, no matter how small, contact me directly. And thank you. I left the coffee shop around 6:30. Outside, the second patrol car was gone, taking Diana with it. Dennison and Liu were still present, coordinating with Fletcher. The sergeant was interviewing another customer who'd been present during the initial confrontation. Everything felt surreal. I walked to my car, climbed in, and just sat there for a long time. My phone buzzed. Text from my girlfriend, asking if I wanted dinner. Normal life, continuing while I'd just witnessed someone's entire criminal enterprise collapse. I drove home on autopilot, kept thinking about Diana's face in those first seconds. The terror, the knowledge that it was over. I wondered if she'd known it was over the moment Dennison walked through the door, or if she'd still believed she could talk her way out right up until the handcuffs went on. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept reviewing the footage on my phone, even though I'd been told not to edit or post it. Watching Diana's performance, because that's what it had been. A performance. Every gesture calculated, every word designed to manipulate. The allergic reaction claim, the righteous indignation, the threat to call corporate. She'd probably used those exact tactics hundreds of times, and it had worked, until it hadn't, until Devin remembered her, until random chance put her in front of a cop who'd seen her before, until I decided to stay instead of leaving after getting my viral content. I thought about all the times I'd filmed Karen videos before, posted them, laughed about them with my audience. Most of those women were probably just entitled assholes having bad days. But what if some weren't? What if I'd missed other stories like this because I hadn't stayed? The thought kept me up until dawn. 3 days later, Fletcher called me. We've identified 7 more victims whose cards Diana used at that coffee shop specifically. Your footage helped us narrow the time frame and cross-reference transactions. We're reaching out to all of them now. 7 more people, just at one location. I asked if I could share any of this with my audience. Fletcher considered it. The arrest is public record. The charges will be public once she's arraigned. You can share those basic facts. But the footage itself needs to stay confidential until after the trial. Don't want to risk any defense arguments about prejudicial pretrial publicity. I understood. That night, I posted a video to my channel. Nothing flashy. Just me talking to the camera. I explained what I'd witnessed without showing the actual footage. Talked about how sometimes the content you think you're capturing turns out to be something completely different. About staying present and paying attention. About how viral culture had trained us to capture moments without questioning what those moments actually meant. The video got decent views. Not my highest numbers, but the comments were different. Thoughtful. Several people shared their own experiences with identity theft. Others talked about times they'd witnessed suspicious behavior but hadn't reported it. A few admitted they'd probably filmed Diana themselves at other locations without realizing what they were documenting. One comment stuck with me. Thank you for not posting that woman's meltdown for laughs. Thank you for taking it seriously. The arraignment happened 2 weeks later. I attended, sitting in the public gallery. Diana looked different in court, smaller somehow. The performance was gone. She wore an orange jumpsuit and kept her eyes down while the charges were read. Interstate wire fraud, 23 counts of identity theft, 47 counts of credit card fraud, money laundering. The numbers kept growing. Her public defender entered a not guilty plea, but his tone suggested he knew it was futile. The prosecution presented preliminary evidence, including my footage. Watching it play on the courtroom screen was strange, impersonal. The judge denied bail. Flight risk, history of failing to appear, severity of charges. Diana's face remained blank. After the hearing, Fletcher found me in the hallway. The trial's probably 6 months out. We'll need you to testify. You comfortable with that? I nodded. Whatever you need. She smiled. You're good people. Stay that way. I went back to creating content, but everything felt different. I was more selective about what I filmed and why. Started asking myself whether I was documenting something important or just exploiting someone's worst moment for views. 4 months after the arrest, I got a call from Christine Reeves. Fletcher had given her my contact information with my permission. She wanted to thank me. We met at a different coffee shop, ironically. She was exactly like her photo from the news article. Professional, composed, but I could see the exhaustion behind her eyes. I knew my identity had been stolen, she said. I'd been fighting the credit card companies for months, trying to prove I hadn't made those charges. But they kept saying I must have lost my card or given someone permission, like I was the problem. She stirred her coffee. When the police finally caught her with my card at that coffee shop, when they had actual video of someone else using it, everything changed. The credit companies immediately reversed all the charges. Apologized. It shouldn't take that. It shouldn't require police video to believe victims. But at least now it's over. I didn't know what to say. I'm sorry you went through that. Christine shook her head. Don't be sorry. Be proud. You paid attention when it mattered. You stayed when most people would have left. That's rare. We talked for an hour. She told me about the nightmare of identity theft, the calls from creditors, the destroyed credit score, the constant anxiety that your name was out there being used by someone else. It violates you, she said quietly. Not physically, but it's still a violation. Someone wearing your identity, spending your money, damaging your reputation, and you're powerless to stop it until they're caught. I asked if she'd been able to rebuild. She nodded. It takes time, but yes, having the thief actually arrested helps, gives closure. Most identity theft victims never get that. Before we parted, she hugged me. Thank you for giving me that closure. I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Purpose. Like maybe content creation didn't have to be shallow. Maybe documentation could matter. Maybe bearing witness was its own form of activism. The trial date got pushed back twice. Legal maneuvering, motions and counter-motions. But finally, 8 months after that Friday afternoon at Westbridge Coffee, I found myself in a courtroom again, this time as a witness. The prosecution walked me through my footage frame by frame, asked me to explain what I'd observed, why I'd kept recording, what made me suspicious. I answered honestly, described Diana's fractured expression, Devon's recognition, the way her story kept changing. The defense attorney tried to discredit me, suggested I'd been biased against her from the start, that I was a content creator looking for viral moments and had exaggerated the situation. I stayed calm. I was definitely looking for content, I admitted. That's why I started recording. But I kept recording because something felt wrong, because the pieces didn't fit. I documented what I saw. The footage speaks for itself. They played my video for the jury, all 26 minutes of it. I watched their faces, saw the moment they understood, the moment Diana's mask cracked on screen and they realized they were watching something darker than a customer service dispute. Devon testified. Lee testified. Fletcher testified, walking the jury through the evidence trail. The fake IDs, the stolen credit card numbers, the pattern across 3 states. Other victims testified too. Amanda Novak, the real one, described learning her identity had been stolen. I got a call from my credit card company about suspicious activity at a restaurant I'd never been to. When I said it wasn't me, they accused me of lying, said they had surveillance footage of me using the card. Except it wasn't me. It was her. She pointed at Diana. Someone I'd never seen before wearing my name. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Diana's face remained blank. The judge scheduled sentencing for 3 weeks later. When that day came, Fletcher called me. You should be here. You were part of this. The courtroom was packed. All the victims who could attend were present. The judge listened to impact statements. Christine Reeves spoke. Amanda Novak spoke. Others I didn't know. Each describing the violation, the fear, the lasting impact of having someone steal your identity. Then the judge spoke. Ms. Pelletier, you engaged in a calculated, sophisticated pattern of identity theft spanning years and affecting dozens of innocent people. You showed no remorse. You treated people's lives as disposable tools for your enrichment. The court finds that you pose a significant danger to society and that a substantial sentence is warranted to reflect the severity of your crimes and to deter others from engaging in similar conduct. 15 years. Federal prison. Minimum security, but still 15 years. Restitution ordered to all victims. Permanent criminal record. Diana's face finally showed emotion. Rage. She turned and looked directly at me. The hatred in her eyes was pure, like I'd personally destroyed her life by simply recording what she'd done to herself. Her attorney had to physically restrain her from speaking. The judge adjourned. As people filed out, several victims approached me, shook my hand, thanked me. You didn't have to stay, one man said. You didn't have to get involved, but you did. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt the weight of the last 8 months settle. It was over. Diana would spend more than a decade in prison. The victims had closure and restitution. Justice, as much as justice exists in an imperfect system, had been served. Fletcher caught up with me on the courthouse steps. You planning to make a video about this? I'd thought about it. A lot. Maybe. Eventually. But not the way I would have before. Not for views, for documentation. So people understand that sometimes the content you capture matters beyond engagement metrics. She nodded. Good. We need more people who think that way. I made the video 3 weeks later. 30 minutes long. Explained the entire story from beginning to end. Included the ethical questions I'd grappled with. Talked about the responsibility of documentation. Played brief, blurred clips of the footage where necessary to illustrate points, with permission from the prosecution now that the trial was over. The video performed differently than my usual content. Slower growth, but steadier. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. Several journalists reached out for interviews. A digital ethics professor asked to use it as a teaching example. The video became a case study in responsible content creation. It wasn't my most viral moment, but it was my most important. Now, a year after that Friday afternoon, I still create content, still film public interactions, but I'm more thoughtful about it. I ask myself, am I documenting because this matters, or because it'll get views? Am I exploiting someone's suffering, or bearing witness to something important? The answers aren't always clear, but asking the questions has made me better at what I do. I drive past Westbridge Coffee sometimes. Always think about that day, about Devon recognizing Diana, about random chance and timing, about how easily I might have left after getting my initial footage, about all the small choices that led to 43 victims getting justice. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't stayed, if I'd captured those first few minutes of Diana's performance and left to edit it for social media. She would have kept operating, kept stealing, kept violating people's identities. The thought makes me cold. Last month, I got an email from Devon. He'd left the coffee shop and started college, criminal justice major. That day changed my perspective on everything, he wrote. Made me want to be someone who pays attention, who sees the patterns. Thank you for staying, for caring enough to document the truth. I wrote back, thank you for recognizing her, for trusting your instincts. None of this happens if you don't speak up. That's the thing about these moments. They require multiple people making the choice to pay attention, to speak up, to stay, to document, to care. Any single person opting out breaks the chain. I've learned that viral content is empty if it doesn't connect to something real. That views mean nothing if you sacrifice truth for engagement. That sometimes the best content is the content that stops being about content and starts being about bearing witness. I still get messages from people who watched the trial video. Some are content creators asking for advice on ethical filming. Others are victims of identity theft, thanking me for taking their experiences seriously. A few are just people who were inspired to pay more attention to their surroundings, to trust their instincts when something feels wrong, to stay instead of leaving. If this story has taught me anything, it's that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be present, to watch, to listen, to document, to stay until the end. Because you never know when a routine Karen video will turn into something that actually matters. When paying attention will help dozens of people get justice. When staying will make the difference between someone escaping and someone being held accountable. I'm still a content creator, still building my audience, still chasing viral moments. But now I understand that the moments that truly matter aren't always the ones with the most views. Sometimes they're the ones where you put the metrics aside and choose to be a witness instead of just a camera. Sometimes the story you think you're capturing is completely different from the story you actually need to tell. And sometimes, if you're willing to stay and pay attention, you realize that truth is more compelling than any performance could ever be. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.